Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Sports Extra. I'm your host Ahmed Nawaz with the latest roundup of sports today. Let's take a look at what we're discussing. First of all, Pakistan team held an important practice session at Hyderabad. Remember, the World Cup campaign starts in a couple of days, but Pakistan tomorrow are playing New Zealand in the very first warm-up match that takes place at Hyderabad. Traditionally, Pakistan, tend to do well in ICC tournaments, but over here right now all eyes are on Pakistan. So they play New Zealand in the first warm-up fixture. Second one they play Australia. Then they start their campaign on the 6th with the first match against the Netherlands, second match on the 10th against Sri Lanka, and then on the 14th they're playing India. So I think that's how the campaign starts, but we're very much focused on how Pakistan play tomorrow against New Zealand. Although it's a warm-up fixture, you've got the ability to change players every now and then, go for a batting combination. Bowlers can bowl, batters can bat, so you've got the ability to make these changes in a warm-up, which is known as a practice game, of course. So it'll be good, and the fact that you're playing New Zealand and Australia, I think that is also good to see as well. So we'll talk about that in detail. Then of course the welcome that has been given to Pakistan. They reached Hyderabad in style, in fashion. The swagger was definitely there, but they received a very warm reception at Hyderabad. Once they arrived, there were chants of Babar Azam. The fans turned out in great numbers. Pakistan truly is one of the favorites in this World Cup. That's what we saw, and the excitement of people from India to witness this Pakistan team and Babar Azam on display is something very special. And me and Sabir were just having a talk about this before the show started, that it was something great to see. That means that the popularity of Babar Azam, he is an international brand, let's face that. So we'll talk about that in detail on the show as well. Then of course we move on to some more developments from the world of sports, especially Pakistan Cricket Board has announced central contracts for men's cricketers. Category A, B, C and D has been announced, and a major inclusion has been a share of the ICC revenue for players, which I think is a big bonus, because financial structures seem to be improving at Pakistan Cricket Board. So we'll talk about that in detail as well. Until the year 2026, these contracts have been awarded. We'll talk about the players who have received these contracts. I'll highlight them as well. They're on your screens right now. Then of course we move on to more news from the world of sports. Some great, terrific news for Pakistan. Asian Games 2023, Pakistan beat Uzbekistan 18-2 in their hockey encounter. This is the third consecutive victory for Pakistan. In the first match they beat Singapore 11-0, second match Bangladesh 5-2, and this third very important fixture they've beaten Uzbekistan 18-2, and now of course they play India and then they play Japan. So these two are very important matches. Pakistan needs to win one at least to qualify for the semi-finals. So we'll talk about that in detail. And then we move on to squash, and in squash Pakistan is victorious. They beat Kuwait in the quarterfinals 3-0 and have qualified for the semi-finals of squash tournament that is being played on the sidelines of the Asian Games, of course, and a medal is now almost certain for Pakistan. These players have performed exceptionally well. Earlier they beat India yesterday, and now they beat Kuwait 3-0. It was an impressive performance from the men's team. It is a team event, of course, so we'll discuss that in detail as well. Time now to introduce the guests. First of all, in studios we've been joined by cricket analyst and expert, a regular feature of our program, Sabir Hussain. Assalamu alaikum, Sabir. How are you?
Walaikum assalam, Ahmed. I'm good, thank you.
Great to have you on the show. We've also been joined by cricket expert Saad Inam. Assalamu alaikum, Saad. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing good.
Great to have you as well, Saad. Now, I think initially, Sabir, the practice session becomes very important, because like I said, it's important that you have got two warm-up games, but I think all good that you're playing New Zealand and Australia, courtesy New Zealand would probably want to play a full-strength side in this game. You've got the ability to make changes. It's a practice match. Australia is definitely coming back with a series against India, so they probably would make some changes, but you've got some good practice before the World Cup.
Absolutely, and Pakistan will be, a happier team, I would say, because they have been playing, against Sri Lanka, against Afghanistan as well, against Nepal, against mighty India as well. But it will be a good practice sessions, practice matches, I would say, against Australia and New Zealand as well, because these two teams are, favorite for the World Cup as well. They have a phenomenal bowling lineup. I would love to see, Australia should, and New Zealand as well. They should play, I think, full strength against Pakistan in practice matches. Then Pakistan, batsmen, should get some practice as far as the top order is concerned, especially Babar Azam, Fakhar Zaman, Imamul Haq as well. Rizwan himself is number 4. So I would love to see New Zealand's bowling attack. Rather than resting some players. considering it is a practice match. I mean, and Pakistan, Pakistan will be happier because I mean they will be playing their other two matches. I mean, of group stage, like I mean against Netherlands and Sri Lanka as well. So Hyderabad will be a good ground for Pakistan to have a practice match against New Zealand, then Australia as well. So Pakistani batting lineup should stick, I think. And the worry I have in my mind, because while training, while practicing, I mean you should not get injured. I mean, we have seen in the past as well, in England and a couple of other countries as well. So Pakistani players while playing football, I mean they got injured. I mean, so I would the worry I have as far as their practice sessions are concerned, training sessions are concerned. But as far as against New Zealand, they will be quite happier to play because of it will be tough opponent for Pakistan. Yes.
Saad, New Zealand traditionally would want to start their campaign with some crucial practice. For them, playing Pakistan is also very important. Kane Williamson is coming on the back of an injury. He joins the side as a skipper. It's all in all important for each team. But this Pakistan-New Zealand warm-up game as a build-up to the World Cup, how do you see it?
I think it's very vital for Pakistan to practice against SE and A teams before getting into the World Cup. Mind you that this has been a long time since the last time Pakistan played New Zealand in March and April series. So I think it's very vital for Pakistan to actually get into the World Cup having this experience from the other countries except from Asian teams. The other part of the story is that as long as Pakistani players are actually going into this World Cup, after being heavily criticized by the public and going into this World Cup, I think this would be a very good moment for them to actually take that momentum of winning by winning these warm-up matches. Mind you, they'd have to preserve their key players because let's be honest here, it's just a warm-up match and you really don't want to use your extra best players and key players into this tournament as long as it's not necessary. So you'd have to use them when they're necessary. So point being that they'll have to win these warm-up matches, and it's a good start for Pakistan to start with New Zealand and Australia, because that is one of the key factors that Pakistan has been missing without playing anything against these countries except for the Asian teams.
Definitely. Initially, I think this becomes a very important campaign the way it starts. So, you're going to build that confidence with each passing game. You're playing 9 games before you move on to the semi and final. If you combine them, particularly then 11 games if you're reaching that final. Hopefully, inshallah, Pakistan are able to do that. Now, we've been joined on Sports Extra by sports expert Umar Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Umar. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you, Umar. What would you like to add about Pakistan's campaign? Now, tomorrow they play a practice match against New Zealand. They've had some, initial practice. We had a Asia Cup tournament, but although right before the World Cup, if you're playing 2 quality teams and then you start your campaign, I think it should be a bonus for you.
Well, we are starting our campaign, but the biggest point to be noted here is none of the players have played an international match in India. And of course, it's a World Cup stage, it's a big stage, the biggest pressure ever. And none of the players have the experience of playing in India in front of the Indian crowd. And this time around, it would be Ahmedabad with 130,000 people. So that adds on to the pressure even more. Apart from that, you mentioned the Asia Cup. So the conditions were completely different. There were Sri Lankan tacky conditions. Here, it's pure batting conditions. And although our batters are good, but the real test would be for our bowlers. And we've seen that early up, Shaheen Shah, if he's unable to break through, the pressure comes in. And then with the blow of Naseem Shah, Hassan Ali coming in, we haven't seen him perform in the past 3 years. But having said that, he is a champion bowler. He has won us the Champions Trophy. So the experience is there. As Babar mentioned in the press conference, that his first preference was Ehsanullah, then the second was Hassan, and when both were not available, so he went with Hassan Ali. I'm surprised that Zaman is in the reserves. Personally, if you ask me, I would like to my 4 bowlers for the attack in any game in this World Cup would be Shaheen, Haris, Zaman and Abrar. But sadly, Abrar and Zaman both are in the reserve. So let's see if someone gets injured and they get a wildcard entry.
Umar, our playing 11 is in question right now. So do you believe that Babar Azam, because the way we've seen Babar Azam, he likes to play a complete side whenever he's got the opportunity. Do you think Pakistan tomorrow would probably be going with the combinations they expect to play in the World Cup, and most probably we don't see any changes there?
Definitely, this is something that I'm looking forward to because tomorrow I will disagree with my fellow here who just spoke that we should rest our players. Babar would definitely go with his playing 11, and tomorrow will decide our combination to a huge extent. Of course, if there's some injury or some niggle, maybe there's one conspiracy theory that if someone get deliberately injured, you might see Wasim Jr. get pulling his hamstring and Zaman Khan walking in for the Indian match. So that is also one possibility. But then again, I think the combination tomorrow will decide what playing 11 combinations Pakistan will be playing with. Because we've got Iftikhar who can bowl. We've seen him bowl in Sri Lanka. Yesterday, we had signs where Maxwell picked up 4 wickets against India, and Australia were getting thrashed against India. Got the better of India in the last ODI. So no matter how good the batting wicket is, under light, second innings, the ball will swing early. The ball will break a bit after it's like 30, 35-year-old over old. So I think if we've got plenty of things to notice and observe in the matches to come in the warm-ups.
Definitely, and I think all in all, positivity should be the need of the hour. But Sabir, I think as far as that welcome was concerned, which we were discussing before the show as well, it seems like Pakistan is very popular in India right now.
It was, we were having a discussion, before the show as well. It was not expected, such kind of gesture from local, people from Hyderabad especially. So, it was wonderful to see, some policemen as well, some airport staff as well, the bus driver himself and the hotel staff as well. Everybody basically wanted to get selfie from Babar Azam, Shaheen Shafri. They were basically chanting the names of, Babar Azam, Shaheen Shafri, the Mohammad Rizwan, Haris Rauf as well. So, it was wonderful to see, I was quite happy and amazed the kind of behavior they have been showing. Obviously sports aside, we have basically international brands. Babar Azam, Shaheen Shafri, Haris Rauf as well, Imam ul Haq, Fakhr Zaman, and a couple of more players as Shadab Khan himself as well. By the way, Virat Kohli invited Pakistani team as well, so Shadab Khan will be more happier. So this kind of behavior gesture we are basically expecting from Indian players as well. So it was wonderful to see. As far as the practice match against New Zealand is concerned, I would like to see Saud Shakil should go ahead, because he was practicing not practicing ODIs. He played well against Sri Lanka in test matches as well. Unfortunately, he got run out in match in Asia Cup. Then he basically got injured as well. So I would love to see Saud Shakil should get match practice as far as the match against New Zealand is concerned, because he will be the integral part of Pakistani ODI squad. Because instead of Salman Ali Agha, I would like to see Saud Shakil, because you have spinning options in the name of Iftikhar Ahmed as well as Shadab Khan, Mohammad Nawaz. But in the left-hander, you need to have a left-hander in the middle order. It will be very good for Pakistan, because Hyderabad, Pakistan is practicing, playing 2 matches in Hyderabad, practice matches, then against New Zealand, against Netherlands, then against Sri Lanka. So 4 matches Pakistan will have to play in Hyderabad. So the average score in Hyderabad is 288. So spinners will be will play a part especially on Hyderabad pitch. So highest chased was 252 against the match between against South Africa and India. So it will be interesting to see how Pakistan in middle order will perform against the against the bowling lineup of Sri Lanka. So Pakistan should look ahead rather than practicing practice match against New Zealand. So Saud Shakil will be the major role. He will have to play a major role in the middle order.
That role I think becomes very important, and we want to see Pakistan progress. But if you're ever looking to give an update in the world of sports, then you better be very careful, because Shirazi Saab is like a sniper who is always ready to shoot you down. I've been shot down today, and Sabir's been shot, the second casualty, because obviously that account that tweeted was probably a fan fake account from Virat Kohli, as I've been told. But the fact is that still again, fans are very excited to see Pakistan and India, and I think that although we saw that camaraderie between Pakistan and Indian team in the Asia Cup, I think it's going to continue. But all eyes on the 14th are going to be there, because people actually want Pakistan to do well. But Saad, they've received a warm welcome, and I think it is a time for Pakistan cricket that they've made some international brands that are very popular around the world, especially in India.
Definitely, it's a very big platform to perform, and World Cup as it is, it's one of the most exhilarating and the most thrilling experience that we really look up to. And it really happens every 4 years. So obviously we've got the best team we've had for the past few years. There have been some few injuries, and we're not going with the best key players at the moment. But the idea is that the warm welcome was sort of really a confidence booster for the team as well. It gave them a sense of security, and obviously going forward with that, I think we'll probably be seeing much of the exhilarating experience and stuff.
Saad, talking about Babar Azam for Pakistan, I think that entire journey of his, cricket is a team sport. There's no doubt about it. But how important is it for every once in a while, create these sort of heroes that people can look up to? And I think after a very long time, Pakistan's got, I'll take two names particularly, Shaheen Shah Afridi and Babar Azam. But Babar Azam gets more of that share, that he's been the talk of the town throughout the world. You know, that debate that always happened between Steve Smith, Joe Root and Williamson, immediately Babar Azam was the fourth subject to be talked about throughout. Former international cricketers, commentators, I mean, there was an Ashes series happening and people were referring to Babar Azam and Shaheen Shah Afridi. There was a series happening in the West Indies and the commentators were referring to Babar Azam. How important is it for any cricketing nation, especially Pakistan, to create such a hero, and how important has it been over the years?
Well, it's been very, very important. If you ask me psychoanalytically, I mean, people really look up to their heroes because they have been in a certain situation and they take cricket or any sport, depend on whatever it is, as an analogy of life. And they see their heroes being put into some tough situations and conditions, and they see them being, performing with guile and gut and still, preserving their initial strength, their mentality, and actually powered through that sort of an obstacle. So seeing someone like that, someone coming from a grassroots level like Babar Azam, who's never had any support except for his own dad, and then him performing under the team of under 19 and playing the World Cup and actually scoring really great and scoring against the mighty teams like Australia, New Zealand, India, and then actually proving his worth of his mettle. It's really important that players actually prove their point and become heroes for the nation to actually be able to look up to them and be able to perform better in life.
Absolutely. I think Babar Azam as an international brand is someone that will always be talk of the town. Umar, the warm welcome Pakistan has received tells us that they're very popular right now in India and all eyes are on them. Obviously, it becomes a political subject for both countries as well. But how do you see this popularity of Pakistan cricket team? They are being tipped as one of the favorites. A lot of former international cricketers have termed Pakistan to reach the semi-finals. There's been a lot said about this team. And then second question would be the same, that Babar Azam is an international brand for us. How important has that been?
Yeah, it is very important, and as I've said, mostly that attitude matters a lot. Looking at the Babar's press conference, he was asked the same question, that are you looking yourself in the top four? And he was like, you're aiming us for too low. We're planning to win the game. So the attitude is there, the team is there, regardless of the loss. Asia Cup, the morale is not low, and I strongly believe that the team will. The first match, looking in disguise, playing against in the and that will kind of set the tone for the players, the right playing 11, of the other ball. I think it's hard to get a good win combination, get some performance in there. Sadab and the others who have been performing low, Makar and they are not the par in the past. So I think if they are able to click, Pakistan would be in much more confident shape against India. And then again, against India, India would be a bit confident, keeping in mind the last win that they had against Pakistan. So I think that is where Pakistan can capitalize, because every time Pakistan has walked into the tournament as favorites, they've always disappointed. And whenever they've been the cornered, the underdogs, they've always surprised everyone. So this time around, Pakistan were amongst the top four, I agree, but after the Asia Cup performances and injury of Naseem, though Pakistan is not very favorite, but we're in for a lot of surprises.
Well, we hope so. I think that Pakistan, people have been asking me, I have generally said that I think they're going to do very well. I've even tipped them to make it to the semi-finals. I'll let you know of our top four. That includes me, Saad and Sabir, giving you our top four at the end of the show. But Sabir, I know Asia Cup has not been that good, but it's in the past now. Pakistan still is a very quality team, and that is something where I think our fans, especially in Pakistan, become very underconfident. So I still believe that this team is going to do very well in the World Cup.
Absolutely, there are some teams, they have a bad day. Like Australia, they have been, thrashed badly by South Africa. Then they lost the series against India as well. So, the big teams basically, they have, some off days as well, some bad days. Their bowlers are not performing, and on that particular day, Pakistan, they have been, performing wonderfully well, especially for last 2.5 years. That is the reason they have become, #1 ODI team in the world. Because of a couple of performances, phenomenal performances by I would say Fakhar Zaman, Babar Azam, Imamul Haq, Shaheen Shah Afridi, Haris Rauf. The transformation of Haris Rauf from T20 to ODIs has been remarkable. And hats off to some contribution of Shadab Khan in the bowling department. Let's forget about Asia Cup. It was a horrible performance by Pakistan. No one was expecting such kind of performance. Obviously, we had a a horrible day against India. That was the reason we basically went down. But against Nepal, against Bangladesh as well, we were basically playing okay. But if we talk about last 2.5 years, we have been playing wonderfully well on different circumstances. Against we won the series, ODI series against Australia. They had a mighty side against New Zealand as well, against West Indies, against South Africa. We have beaten the teams away tours as well. So it's not about that we are the bunny on a home soil. But Pakistani, yes. Especially in the World Cup, the Pakistani bowling lineup is quite okay. Shaheen Shah Afridi, Haris Rauf, Shadab Khan, Mohammad Nawaz, Haris Rauf as well. But Pakistani batsmen basically need to click. Babar Azam cannot give you performance on every day. Some other batsmen basically they need to perform like Imamul Haq, Fakhar Zaman, Mohammad Rizwan himself. The number 4 position is very important for Mohammad Rizwan. And Iftikhar Ahmed, he has to play the role of finisher, I would say. But he has to come very early because of
But Sabir, why every time? Even Iftikhar has said this multiple times. Every time the team is in trouble, they're looking to Iftikhar Ahmed.
Absolutely, but he performed. He performed most of the time, especially in the T20s and also in the ODIs as well. Nowadays he's basically playing a role of Misbah ul Haq. Misbah ul Haq used to play,
uncle of the team.
But Imamul Haq will be the key because someone has to play anchor role. We talked before a couple of days ago that Imamul Haq, Babar Azam, both of them, one of them, has to play, anchoring the role. Especially till the 40th, 45th over as well. Then you cannot expect Fakhar Zaman, to play till 40th over. Then Mohammad Rizwan in the middle overs, he basically needs to, learn the art of accumulating the singles. We used to have Javed Miandad, Yunus Khan, Inzama Mulak, Mohammad Yusuf as well. So Mohammad Rizwan needs to play such kind of innings. He always basically commits very far, early, especially against the top quality bowling lineup, right, like against Rashid Khan, we discussed before as well. And then in the finishing role, Mohammad Nawaz basically proved most of the time against South Africa and Pakistan as well. Shadab Khan needs to focus on his bowling rather than batting.
This curious case of Fakhar Zaman, Saad, there's a lot of talk about Pakistan that they have to increase their amount of runs in the power play. I think traditionally, and considering the team news right now, Pakistan is definitely going with Fakhar and Imamul Haq as an opening combination. Nothing's going to change there. Fakhar's had a rough patch, but for a batter who plays aggressive cricket, it's bound to be. How does Pakistan handle this case?
I think one way or the other, you'd have to understand the fact that, okay, a bad patch and a bad series of performances are a reason for players usually getting dropped out. But one of the other aspects to look at it, certainly, is by actually looking at the things that are not that visible. Performances and seeing everything that happens on an international live match are some of the things that fans and players and all the other people get to see. But one of the other things that the captain and the coaches have seen is Fakhar has been putting it in the nets. He's been, focusing on his training, coming in, showing up on time, and actually keeping up with his fitness as well, which has been a very lost case for a lot of other openers that we've had in the past. You could pull up Shardil Khan, who was a bad fitness form. You had Nasir Jabshir, the bad fitness form. So he's been really putting it to bed by actually showing up and performing and training for the better of that. So obviously there is an incentive bonus for being introduced into the team as long as the bad performance is there. But along with all these check marks that he's been doing, those are the key ingredients to actually make you perform better. And one of the most important thing is to actually be backed by the team's captain, the same team captain who actually made sure that his team, against all odds, against all understanding, against all resigning of all the previous honorary position holding players who have been in the selection committee, he stood up against all that and he took that for his team. So it's really good to see that Babar is backing
But
Fakhar
Saad,
Zaman.
what would you do? You know, all that talk about the quality of Abdullah Shafiq and how technically sound he is. Would you drop Fakhar Zaman?
Definitely, this is a very curious case in terms of Babar Azam taking that. I mean, personally, the reason Babar Azam has done that is probably because he's really been, like, the sources that tell me that he's been really, you know, up to the mark in training and whatnot. So that's probably one of the cases. But then again, in terms of in the opening department, I would really have to see Fakhar Zaman and Abdullah Shafiq go in rather than Imam al-Haq, because let's be honest here, Imam al-Haq, even though him being in the top 10, he really doesn't have that hard-hitting muscle, and you really need someone to rotate that strike, something that is really focused on. So in terms of me dropping Fakhar Zaman and including Abdullah Shafiq wouldn't be an option in like my personal opinion, because I've seen Fakhar Zaman being able to perform in the point where there were severe pressure situations. I can't get 194 versus South Africa out of my head any time of the day. I mean, this would have been that key point where he could have won that match and he would have proved his mettle. But then
All
again,
those sixes down the ground to Mitchell Stark.
oh my God, they were like a blister. I still to this day, like most people, they watch those wickets that Wasim Akram used to see and Asif used to see swinging in. I see those sixes, and especially hitting to Mitchell Stark on his peak. That's not an easy task to do. So definitely there's some mentality issue, and the captain and the team management needs to really put that into perspective and help the player to perform well. Because let's be honest here again, that Iftikhar and Fakhar Zaman have been one of the key components in terms of hard hitting. The Pakistan has a long way to see.
Absolutely. Umar, the curious case of Fakhar Zaman now. Interestingly, team management, as Saad also highlighted, is backing Fakhar Zaman. The captain's got his faith in, you know, as Babar Azam really is of the opinion that Fakhar is going to be opening the innings with Imam ul-Haq. Then on the other hand, you've got Abdullah Shafiq in prime form. All of this happening all around. What is your opinion on the subject?
Well, I'm very glad that Fakhar Zaman is in the squad and he's part of this World Cup, because he's a destroyer, as my fellow said there over there. All it takes is one innings, just one innings, and he'll get going. In any match, if Fakhar stays for 20-25 overs, Pakistan is scoring 350, 400 easy. So that's the kind of player he is. Although he has been through a rough patch, a bad patch, but these Indian wickets are very good for batting, especially if you talk about Ahmedabad and Mumbai and Delhi, Kolkata. They're good high-scoring tracks. Only Chennai and the other match where we're playing over here in Hyderabad, these are a bit tacky wickets, but the rest, I think, would be a pure batting track. And Fakhar is one player who will go aggressive. One thing we've noticed in Fakhar's failure is he goes into the shell. So when he goes into the shell, he blocks, he tries to make it through the power play, and that is where he's making mistake. He needs to play his natural game, and that is just play his strokes. We've seen every time Fakhar has played a big innings, at early, he never middles the ball. He's edging one, his catches are being dropped, you know, he's getting out on a no ball, and he goes on to score big. So he should play his natural game. Just because he's going into the shell, trying to save his wicket, he's going nowhere. His feet is not moving. He's making a wrong shot selection. So I think he just needs to go like he does, play his natural game. And once he get going, even the bowlers will get worried and will be forced to change his line. So let's see how it goes. Abdullah Shafiq, then again, is a very good option. So it's a good problem for Pakistan, you know, at the top, that they have got three openers and all three are equally consistent. Like Fakhar is out of form, but Abdullah Shafiq and Imam, they have been very consistent. They're scoring runs. Imam scored 2 runs against Australia when Australia visited Pakistan, and the batting conditions are similar if we compare Pakistan to India. So I think Imam is also a very good option, and Abdullah Shafiq is a very good option as a replacement. So that's a good problem to have.
You know, the biggest support that Fakhar's got is probably by Sabir. You know, he's been backing him throughout, and this is another moment where Sabir would like to stand with Fakhar Zaman. But things are true. Sabir, we can't ignore them, that he's got the quality. He's one aggressive, tough player. But like Saad said, that maybe just one inning away from producing brilliant results again.
You know, I mean, the reason I basically argue with Asif Bhai and some other our co-hosts basically, we must not talk about his technique at this particular time because he has been playing for Pakistan for a couple of years. I mean, yes, he has a bad patch. He should be rested for a couple of matches. He should not be dropped because you need to have, every captain wants to have, a couple of match winner in his team. And Fakhar Zaman, Shaheen Shah Afridi, Babar Azam himself, there are 3 to 4 match winners in your team. So you cannot drop your match winner. You need to give him some time. But I mean, he has basically got a couple of matches. So better he should be rested. I mean, Abdullah Shafiq will be a wonderful choice for Pakistan against Netherlands, against Sri Lanka, because Fakhar Zaman, he basically struggles against medium pacers as well, against left arm spinners.
So you're dropping him from the side. You're going to drop Fakhar Zaman.
Bring him Abdullah Shafiq. I mean, in initial matches. I mean, then if you remember Champions Trophy, Ahmed Shahzad was struggling. Azhar Ali performed wonderfully well. You cannot, get 100 runs in power play. I mean, all the time. Because you are playing 50 overs cricket. I mean, Abdullah Shafiq is a better player. He is basically all the shots. I mean, if someone has a better technique, so he can play, every shot. I mean, we have seen in the past as well, Abdullah Shafiq is a wonderful player. I mean, like by Imam ul Haq as well. So better to give him, a couple of matches to Abdullah Shafiq. Again, I would say 9 consecutive matches, Fakhar Zaman cannot play. I mean, better to give him some rest. Then Abdullah Shafiq will be a very good choice for Pakistan.
Playing 11 is going to be a big question, but Sabir, the bigger question is that 9 matches, semi-final, final included, makes 11 matches in total. You can't expect, I don't know whether that should be the question or not, that the same 11 to be playing all those 11 matches.
Absolutely, we were discussing these kind of things, I mean, last week as well, that you have, a couple of players who should be rested as well, not dropped. I mean, a couple of players should be rested. You need to check some other players as well, and they can contribute something for the team as well. Like, I mean, Saud Shakil, I would say, if the Khar Ahmed, instead of, Saud Shakil instead of Salman Ali Agha, then you have, Abdullah Shafiq instead of, then Fakhar Zaman as well. Fakhar Zaman will be a very handy batsman against South Africa, against Australia as well, against India might be. But he's a big match player as well. We have seen in the past, like Champions Trophy final as well. Some couple of he has basically played wonderful innings against England in England as well before 2019 World Cup. So there are couple of players you basically need to rotate them. Likewise in the bowling department, you cannot play Shaheen Shah Afridi, Haris Rauf. These kind of two bowlers. I mean, for all 9 matches, you have Hassan Ali as well. You have Mohammad Wasim Jr. as well. So better to rotate them as well. Like, I mean, some other teams are doing. India is doing a fantastic job. Likewise, Australia, South Africa as well. Better to rotate them in a proper manner.
Interestingly, I think we'll continue this debate, but a very important update has just come in. Cricket Australia have announced that Ashton Agar in the World Cup squad has been replaced. This is a final replacement that they've made, and Saad, they've brought in Marnus Labuschagne replacing Ashton Agar.
I think great decision. I mean, Marnus Labuschagne performing against this recent South African series is probably one of the key finding moments to see him being included. And my personal favorite in the Australian team is, few players in the Australian team that I really like. He's one of them. So him being, not being in the team in the initial squad announcement was something that was really, an eyebrow-raising moment for me too. I was like, why is he not included into the team? And I think Australia being in the semi-finals along with South Africa, India and Pakistan is my 4 semi-finalists, I would believe. So, I mean, the squad is one of the best things that they have. I would like to second with Sabir's point that players would need to be rotated and not all 11 matches would be played by one single 11 team, right? So, I mean, understanding the rotation and understanding the options that we have, we so limitedly have. I mean, we really don't have as backup bowlers as we have, and we really need to be performing. I mean, the gap between Haris, Shaheen versus the backup bowlers is kind of big. And not in terms of key performances, I'm only talking about the pace variations as well. So Shaheen and Haris Rauf are supposed to be bowling around 140 to 150s, whereas you'd see Wasim Jr., Zaman Khan, and Hassan Ali be bowling 135 to 145 at max. So there's this quality of bowling also keeping that in factor. I would personally, in my opinion, would really like to see shuffling in the squad, not in terms of replacing players. I would also put in the perspective of understanding and adapting to the pitches variations and understanding those variables and actually shuffling the batting order according to that desire. So you put stats and data into perspective, and you do, you know, brainstorming on that, and then you bring out with your best results and try playing according to that.
And considering the opposition's strengths and weaknesses.
That's one of the most key component. That's one of the biggest component that you need to focus on. I mean, look at the main factor that India's opening department has been always been vulnerable to.
3 matches, they changed 4 openers, Saad.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons that they're doing that, because they have backup options for it. And we really need to rely on our backup options by shuffling the squad in a way. I mean, we were talking about Oves earlier in the previous program, that in order to have the team perform well, they really need to have specialist batsmen ending at 5, and then the all-rounders should start. So then you have options in bowling department as well. So you can go with an extra spinner. But for that, you need to have trust in your first opening 5 batsmen to perform and give a good total, so your all-rounders could actually manage that damage, if in case there is any. So 100%, Pakistan needs to be shuffling their batting and their bowling order respectively in order to adapt to the opposition's weaknesses and according to the variables that are constantly changing in the game of ODI. Now, limited overs are a different story, but ODIs, there's so many variables at stake. You have climate actually affecting the pitches. You've got, you know, the fans and the stuff, the energy is changing over the period of time, and then limited overs is obviously a shorter game. You probably have an innings of ODI being covered in a T20 match entirely. So there's that big of a difference. So that is something that Pakistan should be actually facing in terms of challenges.
Absolutely, unless Nepal is playing Mongolia, that looked like stick cricket all around. Whatever was happening was absurd the way cricket's going. But Umar, Manas Labuschagne comes in, replaces Ashton Agar. So Australia realized the importance of having technically solid batters in this entire campaign in India.
Yes, of course, Labuschagne has been class apart, and this series, in fact, every match before the World Cup starts is a lot to learn for the players, because playing in conditions in IPL is different, and playing in the World Cup, the pitches will differ, because we've seen in Chennai during the IPL that team has scored around 240 runs in 20 overs, and teams have even chased that huge total. So the mentality mindset of IPL compared to this World Cup, wickets, conditions, boundary sizes will vary, and the mindset of a one day, 2 new balls from 2 different ends, things will be different. Looking at Australia, they took a poor start against India, but they just got in the rhythm. And similarly, with these practice matches, I think teams will get better. Australia will have a huge blow, because Stark being there will be a big blow to Australia. But then again, they are a champion team, and they will fight no matter what their playing 11 is. It's just the mentality that matters, and I think every team in this tournament are here to win, and it won't be easy for anyone. So if we talk about anyone of being in top 4, it won't be an easy call, because even Afghanistan will be giving a tough time to each and every team.
Right, that being said, Umar, give us your top 4 that you think are going to make it to the semi-finals of the World Cup.
Oh, well, that's a very tough one, but if I have to choose 4, I would go with India, England, Pakistan, and New Zealand. South Africa at 5th, Australia at 6th.
Right, thank you very much. Umar, thank you very much for joining us. Great having you on the show. Interesting choice from Umar. Sabir, what's your top 4?
Top 4 will be Pakistan, India, Australia, and New Zealand.
Interesting. Saad, your top 4?
South Africa, Australia, India, and then Pakistan to win.
Interesting. I'd go a touch different from all 3 of them. I think Pakistan, India, England, and Australia. So I definitely would see England making it to the semis at least. But that's
two big Ashes moments in international cricket.
But that's going to be something interesting to see in the World Cup. Defending champions are in form. Now we of course move on to another big news from the PCB. They've announced central contracts for men's cricketers as well. And Sabir, interestingly, it keeps getting better and better as far as the financial incentives are concerned. For the very first time now, there is a share in ICC revenues for the players as well until 2026.
Very, good. I mean, heartening to see, such kind of a gesture by PCB. Most of the players, because basically cricket boards are basically, are because of cricketers. I mean, but I would love to see, a couple of players should have, got some contracts. I mean, like Imad Wasim is in, kind of a C category because he's playing only T20s. I mean, Sarfaraz Ahmed, he's a senior player. I mean,
In
should
D
have been in
category,
the
yes.
C category as well.
D,
Shad
D.
Masood,
Yes.
he's in D category. Some other couple of other players as well. I mean, Mohammad Wasim Jr. because he's playing ODIs and also T20s as well. He should have been in the C category. But I mean, other than these 3-4 players, I mean, I think it's okay for me. But I mean, good to see some players are basically getting revenue from PCBs. So they are basically the partners of PCB. Handsome amount will be given to them. But I mean, I'm quite disappointed because emerging category is being removed. I mean, some young players basically they used to get some couple of financial help, I would say, to support their families as well. So in 2021, 2022 as well, I had Asif, and you basically had a couple of programs last year as well that regarding the central contracts. Emerging category, I was quite happy because most of the youngsters basically, are getting some handsome amount to support their families as well. But this particular category is removed, so I'm quite disappointed because of emerging category, yes.
Right. Saad, how important is it? Because they're trying to build their financial incentives as much as they can to try to limit the amount of involvement in league cricket around the world.
That depends on how much, Pakistan Super League has actually generated players, and emerging categories were one of those ways of actually ensuring that this domestic international level of tournament keeps on producing players in a way. My take on emerging players is there were emerging players category for the past few years, and it hasn't stopped players from actually going out and getting contracts internationally to play franchise matches. So I mean, my take is that it's not economically responsible for them to be still giving emerging players, a backup option to support their families, and then when they actually come into, the categories to actually start getting paid by PCB in a better way, they still try to go and try play franchise cricket. In the other terms, I think for the better players for the A, B, C, and D categories, they weren't being justifiably paid better. I think that was also one of the reasons why the emerging players category was actually abolished in the first place, is because that players were actually performing and representing internationally back to back, and then actually that they did deserve in the first place, they need to be paid better. And then you could also restrict the amount of franchise cricket in T20 world nowadays by actually helping them, paying them better in order to restrain them and actually having them, preserving them for the international duty in the first place. So I think all in all was a great decision and a great move. One of the other things that I really wanted to put into light is that there was this contract policy made by PCB in I think the summers or earlier summers in 2022, which recently ended on 31st of July 2023. It was that the players were supposed to play at least 10 domestic matches in order to still, take their place in the team. And that has ended. That is something that PCB should really be looking upon, and that they'll probably be looking upon onto their next step after they've ensured that the financials are, kept away and they're taken care of. So I think that's something that they'll be looking for next.
Absolutely. Interestingly, these things do tend to help the players, but there needs to be a very sustainable and viable model when we consider this, because before this we had separate contracts for red ball and white ball cricket. Now they started, a decision where they want to merge them in order to gauge their performances. So all in all, it needs to be a sustainable model with the PCB. But Saad and Sabir, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Great having both of you. Before we leave, I've got to share two important news with you regarding the Asian Games 2023. First of all, Pakistan beat Uzbekistan 18-2 in a hockey match. This was their third match. They're placed in Pool A along with Singapore, Bangladesh. It's Pakistan, India, Japan, and Uzbekistan. Pakistan have performed exceptionally well. I think 18 goals will do a lot for them as far as goal difference is concerned, because remember, now next they're going to be playing India and then they play Japan. So these two important games are going to be crucial for them to qualify for the semi-finals and get their chances of medal going on. So congratulations to Pakistan team. Then of course we move on to squash, where Pakistan squash team beat the Kuwait squash team in the quarterfinals and have qualified for the semi-finals of the men's team event for squash, and we'll talk about that in further shows as well. That wraps it up from me and the entire team. It's goodbye for now.